can get applause for her because she's doing awesome. And she is very, very excited to be here. Also the family, because she's doing great topics and I'm loving it so far. And besides saying anything else, I want to give a warm welcome and very many people applauding to the worship team coming up anytime now.
Hello? Is everyone here? Yes? Yes? Okay, there's a few here. Let's hear you. All right, so I don't know about you, but I am so happy to be able to be here and worship God with, even though just a few of you. I mean, when there's more than one person, God is there. So I would like to invite you all to please stand up and sing and rejoice with us as we sing My Lighthouse.
In my
to invite Ace to come up and share a little bit of wisdom with all of us.
Hey everybody. Just a warning. What you're about to hear is a piece of fictional narrative, but that doesn't make the story any less true. Some of it could be about me, and some of it could be about you. I grew up in a home without my dad. He left when I was like 3. So when I check my memory, his face is what I can't see. My mom on her own raising 2 sons. She always kept me from bad. She always made sure we had, me and my big brother Zach. He was 5 years older, so his confidence was a lot bolder. I was like his sidekick. I looked up to him since we were kids. My mom was working 2 jobs, so she was never really home. And although she loved us so much, she didn't always know where we were going. And although she took us to church, Big Bro had love for the streets. Whenever he was home, he was Zach. But over there, they called him Z. Now, around this time, we were teens. And let me tell you what that means. Growing up where I did, it's gang culture and violence. Kids know everything about drugs. They know sex before they know love. And that was true for my bro. I was a little bit different though. Being in a gang made him feel cool. I preferred learning in school. While he was out chasing girls, I was out studying my world. Me and my big brother Zach, we go way back. While he was out chasing girls, I was out studying my world. My mom gave thanks to the Creator. She was so proud of my behavior. I learned about my Maker. I believed in a Savior, but Big Bro would never listen to any of it. Well, I remember he was always making fun of it. His choices made Mom cry, and that hurt me deep inside. At age 21, he got life in jail. And I promised Mom I would never fail. And yeah, I know I'm a sinner, but God made me for something bigger. Yeah, I know I'm a sinner, but God made me for something bigger. I quit smoking weed and drugs, the nicotine and the liquor. And now I am a little bit bigger, and my mind's a little bit quicker. I gave my life to the church, used my raps to do God's work. Messages for the youth. The blessings came from the roof. And I went back to the streets and saw a kid who looked just like me. Broken families, don't know what he's gonna be. I said, God, what should I do? These kids need to see you. Please use me as proof that their life they don't have to lose the way I lost my big brother Z. Show them what they can be. That's why I decided to teach life, love, and peace. That's why I decided to teach about Christianity. I finally know my vision. I finally see God's mission. And wherever I find limits, I can trust in the Holy Spirit. Now, last January, now listen very closely. We had this program at church, and for 7 days we're worshiping. And I saw 10 kids from where I stayed coming through every day. This is what caught me by surprise and actually brought tears to my eyes. Because come that Sabbath evening, 5 of them baptized. 5 others chose study. That winter day was so sunny. I remember how warmly I felt as all 10 of them came to hug me. I said, God, you win. The glory belongs to you. Amen. It was a sad day for sin. The victory belongs to you. Straight away, I had to call my mom. And all she said was, son. And I said, wait, mom. Hear what God has done. And again, all she said was, son. And I knew something was wrong. All she said was, son. And I knew something was wrong. Because while that whole day we were celebrating and praying, celebrating salvation, there had been a situation. There was a fight at one prison. And at this point, I couldn't bear to listen. One prisoner had been stabbed by a cellmate in the back. And he was left there to bleed alone. At that point, I almost dropped the phone. I remember her very next words brought chills to my bones. They killed Zach, your big brother. I couldn't believe I was hearing these words from my mother. They killed my big brother Z. To this day, it makes me feel weak. I find it so hard to speak. It brings me down to my knees. The memories fill me with grief. Like, how could this be? The memories bring me to grief. Like, God, what does this mean?
In this life, there are so many things that take us by surprise. But I ask you to please rise and reflect with us and sing along. ask you to heal us in whatever internal or external battles we may be fighting. We know that we are not alone, so please help us feel your presence.
strength. There's a very nice Christian song that's telling the story of two people who are on their way to church. A father and his child. They arrive in the church and they sit in front of the narrator, in front of the guy who is telling the story in the song. The kid is looking at everything and is amazed by all he sees. Beautiful paintings and art at the altar, lampstands, and so many things to see. I'm guessing it's all quite new for the kid. The two of them are sometimes whispering with each other and they're smiling. Well, this sermon takes a long time and just goes on and on and on, and the child leans into his father's arm, but he's getting tired. You know, that's how kids in church are. And then, in the middle of the song, the child says to his father, you know what? I would like to go home already. I'm really, really tired. And the two of them stand up and go home together. The narrator is seeing all of this and he's kind of reflecting on what he sees. And he senses that same desire in himself. Yes, Father God, I would also like to go home already. Not from here, not from the church service, but I'd like to come home. Home to you. Home is in the place where you are. God, I'm also really tired. It's a beautiful and a very emotional song, but as a kid when I used to hear that song, it always bothered me a little. I mean, what? The two of them are talking with each other in church, as in out loud. You're not supposed to do that in church, because in church you're supposed to sit still and not disturb anyone with talking. And it gets even worse. Excuse me, the two of them are getting up in the middle of the sermon and are just going, oh, this is appalling. You can't do that. In church, you're supposed to sit still and listen and learn something, and if nothing else, then you learn how to sit still. That's what the church is for, right? That's how you're supposed to do it. That's at least what I've always learned since I was small. Talking and standing up during the worship service. Unbelievable. You can't do that. Elijah sits under a broom tree and wants to die. Elijah, the man who had just experienced so many miracles at the Mount of Carmel, where God sent fire from heaven and won against 450 priests of Baal and showed them who is the real God to be worshipped here. And God sent rain on the earth after 3 long years of drought, and he made Elijah so strong that Elijah could run faster than a horse. What a God! What a prophet! What miracles! And now Elijah sits under the broom tree and wants to die. After all these amazing things in 1 Kings chapter 18, we meet Ahab. And Ahab is not really the problem in this story. When we come to chapter 19, it seems that King Ahab is actually really impressed by what God has done and what he has seen and what God has done through Elijah. Wow! And he can't just keep it to himself. He has to tell someone about it. He needs to report it. And so he goes to his better half, or maybe more appropriate in this context would be to say his even worse half, his wife, Jezebel, and he tells her everything. It's like a child who tells his parents something like, well, how was your day in school? Well, this and that happened, and he hit her, and everyone were fighting, except I, of course. That's kind of how he's explaining it. I didn't do anything bad, but Elijah, he did it. He started the whole thing. But this is not good. This is not good. If Elijah is the biggest and the most devoted servant of God, then Jezebel is exactly the opposite. Jezebel is the biggest and the most devoted servant of Baal. Baal, the enemy of God. And as soon as Jezebel hears what has happened, she sends someone to Elijah. She is furious. I mean, you'd expect that she sends someone immediately to Elijah to kill him. right? As a payback for what he has done. But no, she doesn't just send someone to Elijah to kill him in that moment. She could, I'm sure she would succeed. But that would be all too easy, wouldn't it? No, 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 no. She sends a messenger to Elijah to tell him, tomorrow you will die. Tomorrow you will pay for what you have done. Just wait for it. Tomorrow your life is going to end. It's so sadistic. She's like playing with Elijah, like a cat plays with a mouse. She wants Elijah to run away so that he would suffer the persecution and be afraid, and only after that she will kill him. Ugh, what a crazy person. But Elijah knows this is not a game. This is for real. In chapter 18, we already have read that Jezebel is able to do what she says. She has already killed almost all of God's prophets. She can do it, and she is furious. So Elijah does what anyone in that situation would do. He runs away as fast as he can. Elijah ends up in the wilderness under the broom tree and wants to die. It is enough. Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors. Well, actually, if we're looking at this situation completely objectively, now, some thousands of years later, a little bit distanced from the actual situation, then this is not very rational. I mean, Jezebel wants to kill Elijah. Yeah? Elijah runs away because he doesn't want to die, and then he comes to the wilderness and he wants to die. Okay? It's not rational, but emotionally, if you put yourself in his shoes, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the part where you can really feel his emotional state is the beginning of the sentence. It is enough. Word for word in Hebrew. Enough now, or too much now. You know that kind of situations? Where so much has happened, and you've gone through so much already, you've climbed over so many obstacles already, and managed so many things already, but there's always a new challenge coming towards you, and a new one, and something worse even. At the end comes one more thing, and it's just enough. It's too much. Too much now, enough now, I can't do this anymore. I've reached my limit, and now is the point where it is just too much. I think with the most of us, that point would have come already way earlier. Unbelievable how long Elijah is keeping it together. But now that point has come. Enough now. It is enough. I can't take it anymore. It's a heartbreaking cry of distress. It's enough. Take my life. Take it. I am not better than my ancestors. By the way, why does he mention his ancestors? That's a riddle. Maybe it has to do with what happened on the Mount Carmel, that he killed so many people in his fury, just like his ancestors had done before him. Maybe. Or maybe it's the sudden realization of his own limits. I am just as weak as everybody else. I can't do it anymore. Or maybe it is the disappointment when the big events from chapter 18 haven't caused any change whatsoever. Everything goes on just like before. Ahab is still reigning evil, and Jezebel is killing those who are worshipping God. Maybe it's all of this together, and it is enough. It brings him to the point that he wants to die. And wherever I am reading or researching about Elijah in this situation, I am always faced with the same reaction towards him. The same reaction, this criticism. How can he say that? A prophet of God who has done such miracles and lived so close to God. How can he want something like that? How can he be running away? He should have known better. He should have been thinking more rationally. He should have just continued. How can he be behaving so bad? Why does he say such things? You're not supposed to do that. You can't do that. And Elijah is being used as an example. Don't do what Elijah does. Don't be like Elijah. Well, that's what people say. That's what people say who read this story some thousands of years later in their living rooms, in their houses, out of their Bibles. Elijah, you're not supposed to do that. But if you read the story, you'll notice that there is one person in the story who never says something like that, who never blames Elijah for his reaction or his words or his wishes. Not once does he say something negative about Elijah and his behavior. Not once. And that someone is God. As Elijah is lying there on the ground, physically and mentally, God acts. God sends an angel to Elijah. He touches Elijah, talks to him, get up, eat. God sends an angel to take care of Elijah, to wake Elijah up and to bring him food. God takes care of the basic needs of Elijah. And you know what I find so cool about this text? As the angel brings the bread and the water to Elijah, he doesn't just leave it somewhere or say, come here and get yourself something to eat. No. The food is being placed right next to Elijah's head so that he doesn't have to do anything. He hardly has to move a muscle to take it and eat it. God knows what Elijah is right now going through, and he gives him exactly what he needs in this moment. And he makes even sure that it is as easy as possible for Elijah to eat and drink next to his head. What a God. Elijah eats, drinks, and falls asleep again. Then the angel comes to him a second time, brings him food again, and sends him on his way. He takes care of Elijah, that Elijah has eaten enough, and then he sends him on his way. He doesn't just leave Elijah where he is, but he says, hey, there's something more. Go, I've prepared something for you. And Elijah eats the bread from God, and he runs 40 days to Mount Horeb. 40 days with the power of one bread. That's crazy. I'm telling you, when God gives, he gives enough. His bread is not out of this world. Elijah arrives at Horeb, the place in the Old Testament where humans have met God. The Israelites have, Moses has, and now it's Elijah's turn, and he goes to the cave, not just a cave, but the cave, with a definite article. Maybe it is exactly the cave where Moses met with God as well. And Elijah is there in verse 9, and it says in the text that he spent the night there. But the same word in Hebrew can also mean to murmur. That's the same thing what the Israelites always did in the desert. They murmured. And I tend to think that perhaps that's the case here as well, that Elijah murmured. And so comes the question from God, what are you doing here, Elijah? Not so much the question of, what are you doing here? I mean, the angel sent him, so he ended up there. But rather, what are you doing here? Why are you murmuring? And Elijah answers, I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away. Indeed, that's how it happened. All of it is true. Elijah is right. This is his experience, and it is a very negative one. And again, people are commenting stuff like, he shouldn't say something like that. He shouldn't speak with God like that. And what does God say? Come out. I want to show you who I am. I want to show you that I am here. I want to show you that I am with you. I am the Lord. And Elijah has this amazing experience in the presence of God. Wow. And after it comes the question from God, again, what are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah answers with exactly the same words as before. I mean, what else should he say? The situation hasn't changed, has it? Jezebel is still wanting to kill him. The Israelites have still all left God, and Elijah is still the only one who has stayed faithful to God. I mean, what should he be answering? Now finally, surely God is going to tell Elijah off. I mean, he just experienced the presence of God, and still he comes up with the same stuff as he said just before. Didn't he learn anything? But God doesn't tell him off. God doesn't judge him. God knows what Elijah is going through. He knows what Elijah has gone through, and he knows what Elijah needs. You are not alone. Go back to where you were. You have been doing the right thing. Continue it. Don't stop. You are not alone. And God shows him 3 persons who he is going to use in his plan to solve this problem with Israel: Hazael, Jehu, and Elisha. God shows him that he has a solution, that he has a plan. God doesn't take the problem away, not immediately, but he shows Elijah, he opens Elijah's eyes to see that he has a plan to solve the situation. You are not alone. He also shows him that Elijah will have somebody who will support him in his work, a follower, the next prophet, Elisha. Elisha, the son of Shaphat, which, by the way, means justice. How perfect. Your successor is Elisha, the son of justice. Exactly what you need. Justice. You are not alone. And to top that up in verse 18, yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal and every mouth that has not kissed him. You are not alone. I have a plan. Just continue. You are not alone. Elijah is being shown something essential about God. In verse 11, as God is showing his presence to Elijah, it is not what Elijah would have expected. At first, God lets Elijah experience something massive, a great and mighty wind that breaks rocks in pieces and splits mountains, an earthquake and fire. But the Lord was not there. That's a surprise. Because just previous to this story, God has shown himself in exactly those kind of massive things. Exactly in an earthquake and in a fire and in loud noises, he has shown himself to the Israelites and to Moses in the past. And immediately before this, in chapter 18, he was mightily working through fire. In the past, what Elijah has experienced, what he knows, God has worked exactly through that kind of things. That's what Elijah knew. And now he comes to Elijah in the sound of sheer silence. That's a surprise. Elijah wasn't expecting that. God wasn't there where Elijah thought that God should be. God didn't do what Elijah thought that God should be doing. And that's how it is. God's ways are not ours. We can't put God in a box and say, now, this is what God is like. This is how he works. I know it. I'm building myself a teaching, a doctrine, a full concept about God, and I know what he should be doing. Wrong. We can't do that. We can't put God in a box. We like to build boxes, we humans, and God likes to break them. If you think that you have completely figured God out, then it's not God. God has so many ways to work. Where we maybe see 1 or 2 possibilities, he has hundreds of ways to work. And that's what Elijah learned. But one thing is for sure, God was there. God took care of Elijah. On each step of the way, God was there. Often we experience God in big turns in our lives, in big events, in spiritual highs where we say, yes, Lord, I feel that you're here and I see that you're leading me. I see you and I see what you're doing in my life. Maybe in the week of spiritual emphasis. That's where we experience God. And then we're disappointed when that's not the case anymore in our everyday life, in the silent, gray, lonely, mundane, everyday life. But believe me, God is there, and He takes care of you. You are not alone. Or perhaps He's not doing it exactly in the way you would have expected, but He's there. He's taking care of you. He's saying, you are not alone. I have a plan. Continue what you're doing. You are not alone. God knows what you're going through. He knows it better than anyone. He knows you. He made you. He knows what it's like to live here on earth. He's done that too. He knows what we're going through. He understands us. And so He knows that we come again to the point where we say, just like the child in the song in the beginning, I would like to go home already. I'm really tired. Or like Elijah, it is enough now. And while other people around us might judge us and say, you're not supposed to do that, that's not how you should be talking with God, or better yet, a believer, a Christian does not get tired, or if he does, at least he doesn't say it out loud. That's what people say. But God is different. He understands us. He knows what we're going through, and He knows just what we need. And He answers, I know, my child. I know. I am here for you. You are not alone. And He gets up, just like the father with the child in the song, and He takes us home. Amen.
Amen.
What an incredible message. We are not alone. No matter what life throws at us, whatever bullets we may dodge, whatever victories we might have, we are not alone in any of them. Even in the mundane, boring classes we all have to sit through. So please rise with me and stand up and sing with us and thank God for never leaving us alone.
When I'm standing
thank you that we are never alone. You carry us, you take care of us, you are with us. That in our moments of weakness and despair, we know that you are there. We are not alone. We are held in your hands. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
So, we have arrived to the kind of promised thing that we've been talking a couple of days already, and we are ready to actually get answers for the questions that you all sent. So I would like to invite Marjukka to come up with me here on the stage and give her a round of applause for she's awesome and she's very excited to be here and be all. So, before we get to it, I want me and everyone else to get to know a little bit better, you know. So I would like to know, where are you originally from?
I come from Finland, South Finland.
Finland. Anyone from Finland? Yeah. And where are you? What are you doing now? And where are you?
Okay, I'm at the moment in Regensburg, that's in South Germany, in Bavaria, and I'm working as a pastor.
Great. So, just so you know, everyone's doing theology. You might actually have some future in Germany as well. Did you have a hard time learning the language? Or
German?
Did you already know it?
No, I had to learn it. We moved to Germany 2013. My husband started working at Hotel in Germany, so that's why we moved there. And obviously he has been speaking German with our kids at home because he comes from Austria. But yeah, I was home with the kids for 3 years, and I did a language course and I studied it. But it was a challenge, and then going to ministry and then working as a pastor, you have to know the language. You can't really communicate with people otherwise. So yeah, then I just had to learn it. But then you learn it fast because you have to talk a lot.
Sounds good. So this is a anonymous question. Well, actually, all of them are. I'm not going to say the name who sent it or anyone. But this is the first question. It's very, very important that you know carefully the answer. And it is, which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Okay, I have to answer Star Wars because
So
that's the only.
She answered correctly.
That's the only correct answer in that question.
Can I get an applause for that? That means she. Yes. All right. So the first question that we have is, how do you manage ministry with your family and your husband being a pastor as well? What are some practical challenges you have to deal with?
Yeah, everything is a challenge. Yeah, it's a challenge. The first 3 years I was working, and Mike was still doing his master's here in Newbold, so he was basically with the kids at home, and I was working full time. And now, yeah, and now he started working in the autumn, and I have cut down my hours a little bit, which has been lovely. And yeah, but the problem is mainly that the work is often on the evenings, and we live in Germany, we don't have any family there, we don't really have friends there, we don't have babysitters. So you just need to plan your calendar really, really well. So we sit down and plan everything in a month and say which evening is yours and so on. But I think that's the same with every parent where both parents are working. If you do shifts in other jobs, you do that as well, and you just have to manage it.
Well, honestly, I can't understand you. I don't have kids or anything, but I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word. How was Mike as a wife? As a
pastor's wife. He's very supportive.
Sounds good.
Very supportive.
Second question: what made you think when you were coming up with this question for the sermons, and what was the process for you going through for the preparation?
The topics of this week, yeah. Well, okay, this could be a very long answer. I tried to explain it shortly. Where should I start? When I came back to church as a teenager, I was I was very active in church. I was doing stuff like I was worship leading. I was in a worship band, singing and stuff like this. And at some point, I felt like God is an emotion for me. You know what I mean? It's like He like in a good moment where there's good music or a special kind of a feeling, then I feel that He's there. And I thought this is a very subjective kind of perception of God. And I wanted to learn who He actually is, what is He like, and what does He want, and what does He say in His Word that He is like. And that's why I came to study theology in the first place.
That's awesome.
So my motivation to study theology wasn't really that I was thinking, oh, I need to be a pastor one day. That came later. But I just wanted to learn, to get to know God better. So this is a very personal kind of thing for me. I'm still on this journey, trying to find out what God is like. And so, yeah, so my advice is, if you're being asked to do a week somewhere, or to do many speeches on one topic, then take a topic that is important for you. And this is something that I burn for. It is very, yeah, it goes everywhere with me, this topic. So it wasn't very difficult to choose this one. And then for the sermons, how do I prepare for them?
How do you go through the process of preparation?
Yeah, I start with the Hebrew translation.
Any fans of Hebrew in the room? Mainly theology students, but she's a very big fan of Hebrew, as we were talking yesterday. So everyone who wants to get close to her, just tell her you like Hebrew and actually mean it.
That's true. We're best friends now. Yeah.
Exactly. We are really best friends.
Yeah, I love Hebrew, and so I translate the text, and that forces me. That's really slow process. So I translate maybe one verse in a day. Then it takes a couple of hours to translate one verse. So I have to stop by every single word to think, what does this actually mean? Because in Hebrew you have many different meanings for one word. One word can have 10 different meanings. And you have to choose kind of from the context or from the sentence which one are you going to prefer. And you have to really process it and really work on the meaning of the words. So you can't just read it kind of past. You have to really focus on each word. And so this is the way I translate the text, and then I do exegesis, I read also commentaries and so on, then to add to my thoughts, and then actually the writing of the sermon is the shorter part of the process, because this translation and so on, that takes a long time. That can take a month, 1.5. And then writing it is quick.
Well, that's awesome. It has me very interested. Third question. Do you think it is hard for modern generations to reconcile the idea of a righteous God and discipline? In other words, is the current generation too sensitive and just wants an easy love message that covers the sin but does not call for change?
So I was expecting a question like this. I thought something like this might come up. I don't think that this is a problem for the current generation any more than it has been in the past. I mean, Paul writes so much about this, this kind of balance between grace and how it actually changes me. So I think this is a problem that Christians in general throughout the times have struggled with. And when we talk about it, I think the important thing is kind of the order of things, I would say. I think grace comes first, the love of God comes first, and then it changes me. And this is the natural conclusion of the love of God living in me, is that it does something in me. If it doesn't do anything in me, then maybe it's not the right thing. Maybe it's not the love of God. So I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. Grace comes first, and after that, as a natural conclusion, out of it follows the change.
Interesting. So if you guys still want to ask some questions later on after the questions Q&As, you can just meet her around the room and she will give you a very good answer like this one. The last question we're going into is, why is God of the Old Testament threatening the Israelites with his wrath all the time, but then taking his word back almost as often? Can God make his mind?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good actually, this is a very good question. And I think it shows very clearly, for example, in the Old Testament prophets, because you have like this doom language, like this really, really negative and kind of aggressive language towards the people, and then in between or at the end you have like a marvelous promise of a bright future for those who have stayed faithful to God and so on. So it's kind of contradictory. And there are many theologians who interpret especially the prophets in this way, that they say, well, these must be two different authors, or this can't come from the same source. Somebody has added this at the end because this can't be. It can't be that God is first so judgmental and then at the end actually being so graceful. But I think the problem is that our human minds can't grasp the way that God works. And with God, there is no judgment without grace. There is no anger without love. For us, that's kind of an impossible thought because we only live the one thing at a time. But I think this is very, very typical for God. So yeah, important question, but maybe hard for us to understand. I don't know if that helps to understand it better.
Yeah, I think it answers, and if not, we'll have some more questions on Friday. Thank you very much, Marjukka. Those are the questions we're going through tonight, and then just a quick announcement before we are done, and you guys can talk and enjoy the rest of the night. We have some announcements. We still have refreshments in the back, so don't leave without eating all of it, because if not, who else is going to eat it? Second thing, as you've noticed, at least I've noticed, because I'm here in front, new people are starting to approach the couches, the sofas, and they're coming earlier, so I would like you to take advantage of that. And if you guys want to sit comfortably, be in first line and enjoy the presentation and Marjukka speaking, then come early and sit here. If not, we have suites on the tables. We do have live, if you guys can make it one nice night, we have it on Facebook. I think it's the Newbold College of Higher Education page, and if you guys want to see it, you can just go there, look it up, and we'll have it. We also have Scan Me, so we would like to get your feedback on how do you like, how's the program going, what do you think, if it's good, if it's not, what do you want to improve for the next WOSEs that we do, with such emphasis that we do in the future. So with this being said, I want to just leave you with the small conclusion of what Marjukka said. You're not alone. God has promised you the kingdom, God's promised you everything, and He'll always be next to you. So with this in mind, you can... Oh, there you go. Another reading.
What do you do when God does not do what you think He should be doing? That's the topic of tomorrow evening. See you there.
So yeah, that is also, which I forgot to mention. Thank you, Jared. So tomorrow we have 7:30 as well, and the topic was, can you pass through the whole program that was there?
As part of the video.
Okay, so the title was when you don't like what God is actually giving you an answer for. So 7:30 tomorrow. Be here. Be first if you want to stay in the couches. Enjoy the refreshments. Have a good night.